Greetings and felicitations.
Hip hip hurrah, tally-ho.
Hey, my little Georgia Peach.
Hey, Puddin'. So, we read the 2 Avatar books that are Deep Space Nine books by S.D. Perry, Avatar Book 1 and 2.
Let me start out by saying that, you remember when that Deep Space Nine documentary came out? What We Left Behind?
Yes.
And they were speculating, well, what would happen if there was an 8th season of Deep Space Nine? And there were quite a few of us in the audience saying, we already know what happened. If you follow the books, you know what happened. And in our minds, this is what happened. And so this is the starting point, the jump start to the post-Deep Space Nine era.
Yeah, this is the DS9 relaunch that picks up after the show left off. And, well, of course, in the documentary, they created their own story that was
They didn't even
different.
acknowledge that this was going on. And we're talking about over 20 years ago now.
Right. For a lot of fans, this is what happened because these are the stories that we know and love.
Sure.
So for Avatar Book 1, on the back of the book, it says, in the aftermath of a war that brought the Alpha Quadrant to the brink of destruction, Starbase Deep Space Nine, the galaxy's nexus of scientific and military intrigue, is once more the flashpoint of impending Armageddon as a surprise attack cripples the station, killing hundreds and threatening a fragile new peace. Colonel Kira Nerys and the survivors, together with several controversial new officers, are all who stand against the outbreak of a new war and a terrible doom tied to the unborn child of Captain Benjamin Sisko. Elsewhere, Captain Jean-Luc Picard and the crew of the Starship Enterprise make a startling discovery, one that will affect the destiny of an entire civilization and forever change the lives of those aboard Deep Space Nine. And then I'll go ahead and read the back of the second book, the second Avatar book, Return to the Edge of the Final Frontier. As the Federation prepares to launch a counterstrike against the Dominion, Colonel Kira Nerys searches for a way to prevent another galactic holocaust, but when a newly discovered prophecy propels Jake Sisko on an impossible quest and threatens to plunge all of Bajor into chaos, Kira is forced to choose between being true to her faith and being true to herself. Meanwhile, as the combined crews of Deep Space Nine and the Starship Enterprise struggle to stop a terrorist plot to destroy the station and the ship, lives change, new friendships are forged, and the shocking truth behind a grisly murder is revealed.
Now, it's interesting to note that the publishers did admit later on, saying this should have been 1 volume instead of releasing it as 2.
Yes, it was 2 fairly short books, and so, yeah, the story really could have combined into 1. And to me, when I read a duology, I tend to kind of, once I'm finished, I combine the stories in my head. I mean, it's hard to remember exactly which one happened in which book.
Yeah, it's not 2 different timelines. It's a one cohesive story that connects. And I have to say, S.D. Perry, she's got the characterizations down perfectly. It actually felt that in my mind I was watching Episode 1 of Season 8 of Deep Space Nine.
She did a very good job with these. And it has been stated before that they wanted all of these DS9 relaunch books to still have the same feel as the TV show. So that's why you can feel that, like, the same atmosphere, that they're still on a station, that they're still in danger. The Dominion War is over, but now something else is happening.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and we see that they can easily, because it's a literary work, bring in special guests from other series, which a TV budget can never afford. And this makes the Star Trek universe even more cohesive when you have different ships coming in and out of the spaceport and bringing back characters that we know from different series.
And I love when they do that. So this is actually, they brought in the Enterprise. It is sort of a crossover, but it's still more of a Deep Space Nine book than a TNG book. But it was great to have Enterprise there, and they actually followed some of the Enterprise separately at first. They went to the Denorius Belt and found something there, an abandoned Cardassian ship. And the book introduces Ro Laren again from TNG.
One of my favorite characters of all time in all Trek. I mean, I thought her character was amazing. I love Michelle Forbes, anything she's in. 24, Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, she's a great actress. And so we also know that the part of Kira Nerys on Deep Space Nine was originally supposed to be Ro, and they changed it just because Michelle Forbes didn't want to do a TV series at that time. And I did hear that she later regretted that too. But we got Kira out of that, and Kira was always a great character. And so now having Ro on the space station, and she will continue to be on the station, so now she is the security chief because Odo is no longer there because he went back to join the Founders.
It's a natural transition. I love her on Deep Space Nine, and I love the fact that she does not follow the prophets, that her character brings in just enough grit and enough tension with other Bajorans that are super spiritual minded.
I like how S.T. Perry brought that out because on the show, on TNG, like we didn't know that Ro Laren was not religious, or even at that time we didn't know how religious the Bajorans were.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's great to see her contrast with Kira here, and we see that the two of them sort of clash at first because they do have different beliefs. Kira has always been very religious, believing in the prophets, and Ro brings out that she didn't believe in the prophets much, and even wore her earring on the wrong ear.
And that is an outward sign of rejecting the prophets.
She even says in the book, well, she wears the earring in the first place to honor her father because her father, she says, believed in the prophets, but so she wants to wear the earring, but she wears it on the wrong side, which a lot of fans had talked about seeing Ro on TNG, and the book actually explains why. It's because she didn't like the prophets touching her left ear, so she puts her earring on the left to keep them from touching her ear.
Isn't that awesome? I love these Star Trek books because they're able to take flaws in the series, because they didn't know what they were doing, how deep they would go with Bajorans at that time when Next Generation came out, and they rework it in such a way that it all makes sense.
I love these little explanations, yeah. And also there was a scene where Picard talks to Ro for a little bit.
Excellent, that reuniting. And they
Yes.
talk about how awkward it is.
It's great. Yeah, this is one thing about reading a book because you can see their thoughts. The book says, well, she was thinking, of course she knew it was awkward and so did he, but he really wanted to talk to her and say that he's okay with her being there and that she is on a good career path and everything. And understand that Ro is actually, she's not in Starfleet, she's in the Bajoran militia, which took me a while to figure out because somehow in the book I just assumed she was in Starfleet, and she has her rank of lieutenant, but she's actually in the Bajoran militia.
Mm-hmm. So on Deep Space Nine, she wears an outfit like Odo would wear.
Yes, even though it's hard to picture her wearing that. To me, I like to picture her wearing the Admiral Kane uniform from Battlestar Galactica. Just because, I know at this time she's older and for some reason I don't think she would look as good in Odo's uniform. So,
she looks good in anything. I mean, she's aged gracefully.
Yeah, she does still look good, yes.
We have a new second in command.
So the book introduces, well, there was one second in command who got killed early in the book, and then they take on Commander Vaughn, who has been in the books before. Now, actually, Commander Vaughn is like a constant that they developed in the Star Trek Litverse. He was actually in the Lost Era series. He kept appearing, and back then he was younger. Now they say he's a human who was over 100 years old. So he's been in Starfleet a long time, and he's got all this history behind him, and he's such a wonderful character, yes.
And they have his picture on the cover, and he looks great for being over 100 years old.
Yeah, you have to think that in the 24th century, people would age more slowly and live longer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because
so it makes sense.
Yeah, we knew that McCoy, well, DeForest Kelley, even though they didn't call him McCoy on TNG, was over 100 years old. So humans can live pretty good long lives.
Mm-hmm.
And also, and since I have read some of the other books down the line, I mean, I know Commander Vaughn will still be there, and he has a certain fate, but right now we just think he's really a great character.
And I love that the lit verse brings in new characters, builds on the Star Trek mythos, but they do. I like how the writers work with each other and use the characters interchangeably as the series goes on. And I think that's one of the joys of the Star Trek lit verse.
And some of the other characters are introduced that I know will be used a lot more later, like Prin Tanmay and Sam Bowers. They're not as important in these books, but they get developed in a lot more later. So the book is kind of seeding things that are going to come later, which is cool.
And to have an Andorian on Deep Space Nine,
yes,
as a main character, I love it. I love the Andorians so much.
Yeah, we cosplay Andorians. Yeah, and the character of Shar also becomes very important in the Star Trek lit verse. And so we see him here as an ensign, and he's very competent and wants to be on the station. We love his loyalty and
his awkwardness.
Yes.
Because that's one of the things is he's struggling to be around humans. He's struggling. I love how you're able to get into his mind of what it's like to be culturally different, to be surrounded by people who are not like you.
Yes, and even showing his family problems. His mother is a counselor on the Federation Council, and he doesn't want to be known for that.
Mm-hmm.
But people find out anyway. It's hard for someone to not.
He wants to pave his own
out.
path. He doesn't want to be in the shadow of his mother. So that's
right.
a weight that's on his shoulders.
Right, and then the fact that he also doesn't quite get along with his mother because she wants him to basically go home and get married, but he wants this career in Starfleet, and other things about that come out in later books. But it's great because I have read some of the later books, but it's great to now go back and see what I missed and to see all these the development of these characters from the beginning. And to find out that Odo sent a Jem'Hadar to the station, and the Jem'Hadar is to take orders from Kira, but he's basically there to observe, and that was an interesting take on it. And like why would they add this type of character to the story? I think it's so that to always remember that Odo was there, and to show sort of a peace offering with the Dominion, to show that the Dominion is not supposed to be a threat to them anymore.
Mm-hmm. It makes sense.
And there's a new Bajoran Prophecy. It's like it's Deep Space Nine, so it just has to have a Bajoran Prophecy.
Which I like, because it's one of the core storylines of many things in Deep Space Nine. Everything is wrapped around Bajor. So let's talk about this prophecy and how Colonel Kira found out about it. So
the prophecy is unearthed at Bahala. Well, remember that's something, a city on Deep Space Nine that had just been unearthed. And the prophecy says that 10,000 Bajorans have to die. And there's other things in it about the child of the emissary. And remember at this time, because this is 3 months, the book picks up 3 months after Deep Space Nine left off. Sisko went into the wormhole, disappeared. They don't know if he's coming back. But Cassidy, was already married to Sisko. She's pregnant with his child. Oh, and it's funny that she doesn't want to know the gender of the child, even though Bashir knows because he's her doctor during this time, but she doesn't want to know. But there is something in the prophecy about Jake hears the prophecy, and he interprets it to mean that the son of the emissary is going to bring the emissary back. So Jake wants to go into the wormhole to bring his father back. But Jake winds up disappearing. He does, as far as the readers, we know who went into the wormhole, and that's all we know about it so far.
Mm-hmm.
The characters in the book don't know where he is. Jake told them he was going to Earth to visit his grandfather, Joseph. But then we find out Joseph he didn't know that Jake had said he was going to Earth, and he never saw Jake.
So this story is not wrapped up in a nice, neat bow. There are threads in there that lead on to further in the Deep Space Nine series.
It expands. I mean, it's a new story, and yet it's still something that fits into what's been established with the show. All of the references to the past, to the emissary, the orbs. A new orb is discovered in this book, and it still continues with Cassidy being pregnant, and we know who is not on the station. You know, Worf is no longer there. Garrick is no longer there. O'Brien's not there. Dr. Bashir is still there, and Ezri. And of course,
it's great to see Ezri and Dr. Bashir and to understand their relationship better.
Yes, they are in a relationship, which is cool because, I mean, you know that Bashir always liked Dax, and now he has a new chance with Ezri, who is not really the same person at all. And so they're getting used to each other, and they're feeling their way through that. And the book does bring up the fact that Bashir is he's wondering, like, how much has he changed? Because he knew he was so much younger and immature when he first met Jadzia.
Oh, he was goofy in that first episode.
Yeah.
I mean, annoyingly so.
So it is great to see him here, the new Bashir, and taking on this relationship, and they do have a fight, but they're still working things out. So it's very much an adult relationship, we'll say, and it's very nice to see the way it plays through in these books.
But this prophecy about 10,000 people must die is really shaking up some.
Yeah, and the thing is, and we do have to relate it to what we know in our world about Bible prophecies. There are things that are in the Bible, and people wonder how that's going to happen or when it's going to happen.
You're going to always have fanatics that are applying it to themselves in their timeline.
But as per the Bible, their prophecy has to be interpreted, or needs to be interpreted, but it's vague enough that people can get different things out of it. That's the thing.
Yes.
And because in the end, the Bajorans even say, you know, who knows what was happening at the time that this was written. So they have to consider those kind of things as well.
Yes. So they're thinking, they're adding up how many people are on Deep Space Nine, how many ships are docked on Deep Space Nine, and they say, if you add up all the ships and all the people and all the visitors, it's 10,000. That must mean we're all going to die.
Right, and that's just, that's a scary thing, and they're wondering, so really we have to die. I mean, in order for the new child of the emissary to be born. And I mean, it affects Cassidy too, and she never really took much stock in Bajoran faith, and it's one of the things that she said kind of put her at odds with Captain Sisko, even though she loved him, and he was the emissary. She kind of felt like he almost took that too seriously.
But it's interesting also that part of the not wanting to believe that this was going to happen was to discredit this prophecy as not being an official prophecy, being a fake prophecy.
Yes, they also questioned whether or not it was real.
A lot of parallels to real world prophecies, no matter what a person's faith is. If you like the prophecy, it's real. If you don't like it, it's fake.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to deal with for these people. And the Bajoran Vedic Assembly, they're trying to figure it out for themselves. Like, well, what should we do with this? And Nog, of course, Nog is on the station, and he becomes one of the main characters now. And he becomes friends with Shar, and that's pretty cool. They're both young, and both seem to be leading the way for people of their race in the Federation, in Starfleet. I think they kind of both feel this connection because they're the non-humans there. And of course, Nog has a very different reaction to the Jem'Hadar being on the station. There's one Jem'Hadar soldier who was sent there to, as we mentioned, sent there by Odo, and he's supposed to take orders from Kira. But Nog is really afraid of him and really suspicious of him.
I would be.
Definitely.
Come on. Come on. It's one of those things that they're killing machines. It's hard to put that behind you when you see what destruction they could cause.
That they can be very dangerous, and so this one has to convince them that he really is not going to hurt them, because he was ordered by the Founder to just be there to observe. Mm-hmm. And I did think it was strange, like Commander Vaughn seemed to accept him right off, and then you have Nog, who was suspicious right off, and everybody else is just sort of in between. So I think these books were a great start for the relaunch of the DS9 series, and it's a great setup to see what's going to happen next, and to continue these characters and add new characters, because we know that some people have left the station. I think this is just a great way to continue the story on the station and with the Defiant. Yeah,
there's no doubt about it. I think the Star Trek books in many ways are superior to any series that could come out post Deep Space Nine, post Voyager, post Enterprise, whatever series you follow on TV. The books oftentimes are better because of who you could pull in from different ships, from different past experiences, different episodes, because the writers, they really know their Trek, the ones that are, I'd say, in the past 20 years or so. They understand the characters, they understand the direction, and they work together. And I think that's great that all these modern writers work together to make sure that their stories and the newer characters that are being developed, like whether it be Keith DeCandido, David R. George III, or David Mack, or any of them. I love seeing these new characters working back and forth within the books. So the franchise grows organically, and it's not solely based on, let's have a throwback here. But you see the progress of the characters, and I'm really liking to see the progress of Nog as well. I think that's one of the characters in Deep Space Nine that we've been cheering for. We see so much maturity and growth out of him, and to see him follow his dreams and advance in Starfleet, it's awesome.
So a great start for the DS9 relaunch.
Yeah, big thumbs up for me.
Thumbs up. Thanks for listening. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and join our Facebook group. Live long, and may the Force be with you. Nanu Nanu.